It knows I'm there, but it's not seeing me.
So I think you're going to see me fill your screen. I should have done a little more with my hair. But welcome, and we will get started. I wanted to let you know a little bit about me and why I feel qualified at all to do this presentation. I graduated from Wellesley College with a degree in philosophy. My focus was on medieval philosophy. I graduated right in the middle of a recession. I did some work for Manpower Temps. I had a boyfriend who was not really a good match for me, and I needed a graceful way to get out of that relationship. So I decided I would go to graduate school. And I went back to my advisor at Wellesley and said, I want to go to graduate school. Could you give me a recommendation? And she said, why do you want to go to graduate school? And I said, I have always loved Thomas Aquinas with all of my heart. And she said, yeah, I'm not writing that recommendation. You need a better reason than that to go to graduate school. Think about it and come back. Think practically, she said. So I went home and I thought for about a day, and I came back and I said, I have also always been interested in bioethics. And I think if I got a degree in bioethics, then I could get a job. And she said, fine, I will write that recommendation. So I went to the University of South Carolina, which had just started a Center for Bioethics, and worked there during graduate school and for a little while afterwards. And part of that job involved working with a nonprofit called South Carolina Health Decisions that went into different communities around the state to have conversations to ask what people in these different regions wanted out of their healthcare. And the idea was that a county with an aging population might want more Medicare resources, and an urban area with a younger population might want more family planning funds. So I had these conversations with large groups of people, and it was a fascinating academic pursuit. And then I got married, and the conversations became quickly very real. So I am going to switch now to a PowerPoint. Let's see, how do I make that look really nice, Amanda? A slideshow, yeah.
Yep, that's it, and then from beginning.
So I wanted to share 4 conversations that I have had. These are just examples. Everybody has their own. I will try not to bore you. But each is different and unique in its own way. The first was with my father-in-law. It was urgent, it was unexpected, it was brief, it was extremely harrowing. The second was with a friend who was actually my stepdaughter's biological mother. She was young, she did not have family around, and she needed to put together a non-familial care team. The third conversation was with my mother, age 82. And the fourth conversation is actually a video I'm going to show you with my adult sons. It is, I kind of ambushed them. They came over and I said, hey, let's have a conversation. So this is my father-in-law. This is 3 months before he died. He was healthy, except for the cancer. He had had cancer for 10 years, but still he was robust. In 10 years, my husband had never had a conversation with him about final wishes. He went into the hospital for what was supposed to be outpatient surgery, and he never recovered. He walked in, he was supposed to walk out. There was a complication, an error, some might say. And I asked Greg where the power of attorney was, and there wasn't one. I asked where the advance directives were. There were none. This was our first married fight. We had been married about 90 days. Oh, less than that, 60 days. Because there was no POA, even though Greg was the next of kin, We got very little information from the doctors. In fact, they discharged Fred. They put him in an ambulance to send him home without telling us the prognosis. Greg refused to sign the discharge papers until a doctor would come and talk to him in the parking lot. He signed the discharge papers on the hood of the medical transport vehicle that brought Fred to our house. We did not have a hospital bed. We did not have a ramp. We were completely unprepared. I mean, we were kids. We also didn't have any money. My husband was a professional traveling musician. I was finishing up my graduate degree, and we did not have access to Fred's bank account because we didn't have any power of attorney. We couldn't hire nurses. We did not have hospice because the doctors had not signed off on it. And we were pretty desperate. He was not conscious, so we called his personal physician, who probably broke all sorts of HIPAA laws, but came to the house, took one look at the situation and said, "I'm so sorry." He signed off on hospice, and we were able to at least get a little bit of care, but we needed round-the-clock nurses. And we didn't, again, we didn't have the funds to do that. The sweet hospice nurse, in some moment of clarity, Fred was unconscious. We would sit by the bed hoping that he would wake up long enough to sign papers, which then of course had to be notarized. And he didn't come to. Finally, after about 2 weeks, the hospice nurse got him to sign over power of attorney with a note that was scrawled that said, "Do not resuscitate." And I think of the agony that he went through because he was so worried we would try to take, we would do things he didn't want done. And we had never talked about what those things might be. He did die at home. But that was a case where we did not have papers in place. This is an example of a second conversation. The woman in light pink is my stepdaughter's biological mother. Yeah.
You're not currently screen sharing.
Oh, shoot.
No, you're good. Can you share again?
Yeah. And now I have to, how do I do it again to make it big?
Just from current slide. All the way
Oh, I see it.
There you go.
Did that work? Is it big or not?
Not yet.
I'll just flip through again.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Okay, conversation number 2. This is my stepdaughter's biological mother. We all co-parented together. She was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at the age of 33. She did not have family nearby. And I know this was a question that came up last week. What do you do if you don't have a spouse or children or parents? So she put together a care team of non-familial folks and gave us very manageable jobs. She had some really big asks for us, meaning she asked us to do some big things that we refused. If you don't ask the questions, you will not get the answers. So some of what she asked, we did not feel like we were in a position in this time in our lives to do. She found other people to help, and she put all of her wishes on an index card, a 3x5 index card that she gave to each member of her care team. We all carried those index cards with us all the time. They had phone numbers of her oncologist and of the other members of the care team. There was probably nothing legally binding, but it worked for her. My job was to hold on to all the medical updates. She did not want to know what was going to happen. She wanted to get on the treatment train and move. but she wanted somebody to know what the prognosis was and what likely steps would occur. I was that person, and it was my job never to tell her. I will say the thing she neglected was making funeral arrangements. And after she died, there was strife there. Her family, Catholic, lived out of town, wanted one sort of funeral, and we knew that she wanted another sort of funeral. So she had two. One was at the Chapel of the Cross. Here is my mother and my father, my sister and me in 1972. This was Easter. My brother was on the way. And if you think I'm a little nervous and high strung, do take a look at my younger sister. She does not outgrow that. I'm going to show you this just so you understand why I am still in denial that my mother ever died. This is my father's Wikipedia page. A native of Columbia, South Carolina, with an affinity for extinction, Dunlap drowned and was resuscitated at the age of 13, and amidst a succession of medical emergencies, had a near fatal motorcycle accident when he was 33. Suzanne, you want to jump in and ask something? Suzanne, if you want to unmute and ask a question.
Not at all. You were having Harry managing my computer.
Oh, gotcha.
The cat decided that he needed to hit various buttons.
My siblings and I did not believe, and still do not believe, that our parents would ever die. Part of my father's lore was dying and coming back from the dead. We certainly did not expect my mother to die first. My father was always having, accidents and near fatal mishaps. My mother was steady. It was a shock when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Just to back up, I want to say, in this picture with Laura, my stepdaughter's mother, this is 3 weeks before she died. 3 weeks. This is my mother about 6 months before she died. She had a pretty brutal treatment for colon cancer. So I know that her mouth right now is really full of sores. In this case, here's my brother, finally. We thought we were the A team. I mean, I knew bioethics. My sister had worked for 20 years for AIDS Emergency Fund and Breast Cancer Emergency Fund in San Francisco. My brother is a master carpenter who can build ramps and put in shower handles. We could do it all. That is not what my parents wanted us to do. They wanted us to come in, listen, and follow instructions. I mean, we were ready. Put me in, coach. Nope. Our job was to be the support team. And that was really hard at first, because what my mother wanted was not necessarily what we thought she would want. I mean, the treatment was rough. We thought, oh, you need to stop the treatment. We'll sit on the porch and we'll all drink champagne for the rest of your days. She said, don't try to guess what I want. I want all the treatment. As long as I can sit on the porch and enjoy the breeze, I'll endure anything. And so that's what she did. This picture, like I said, is probably about 5 months before she died. My father was the clear team leader, and we followed his instructions. One thing that was interesting to me, he is very healthy and he is still working. And when we went to visit the hospice organization, he said, look, do me a favor. Don't say anything. Let me do the talking. And every feminist bone in my body clenched. What do you mean? And he said, if you don't let me do the talking, they're going to talk to you. Trust me. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. That's ageism. Nobody would treat you like that. And we walked into the hospice building, and the first thing they did was look past my dad and start talking to me. I wasn't going to be there 24/7. He was going to be there 24/7. And I kept my mouth shut and deferred to him. And it made a huge difference. My parents decided when they entered hospice that they wanted minimal visits. The hospice nurse was like, we can come every day. We can give you baths. We can give you medications. That is not what they wanted. They wanted one visit a week, which I think was required. And that is the way they lived the last months of my mother's life. One thing to note is that not all hospice organizations are the same, and you probably know this, but shop around to find the one that will honor your wishes. It became a little bit of a joke at our house because every hospice worker that would come in would say, "It is an honor to be on this journey with you." And I started using that sarcastically. No matter what was happening, I would say, "It's an honor to be on this journey with you." And my brother said, "Now hold on a minute, I like it." And as the weeks went by, I liked it too. It was an honor to be on that journey. It was an honor to be part of a united front that could talk to medical teams, that could talk to friends, that could talk to other family. My mother decided she did not want any opioids or painkillers. And until the day she died, she did not take them. Again, that's not a decision that I would have made, but it was a decision that I had to respect. Some other conversations we found that were really important were between the siblings and deciding sort of outside of the bigger conversation what we wanted to be a part of. How long did we want to be with my mother's body after she died? Did we want to help prepare it for removal? Did we want to be there when she was cremated? And we didn't all agree, and we didn't all have to do the same thing, but it was nice to have had those conversations before the day she died. It was also very fun to write her obituary with her. I think I've told some people she wanted to include this line: "Though she was deeply influenced by the teachings of Jesus and Kanuga, she did not consider herself a Christian woman." I just love that. We ended up taking it out, but that's, that was fun. There was a moment of strife when we had to decide the order in which to put the grandchildren. Wouldn't have seen that bubbling up as trouble, but boy, was it. Same with the funeral. She wanted a very small funeral. Extended members of the family wanted a huge party. She won, but we needed a united front to make sure that that happened. So now I want to show you the unscripted video that I had with my own kids. The first time I had a conversation with my two boys. So I've got a stepdaughter, Bevan, who lives outside of Dubai, and then I've got two adult sons. We were getting ready to travel to the UAE and leave my 17-year-old home alone. So I sat down with him and I organized all the information he would need if something happened to us. This is not just funeral plans. This is passwords to the bank account. I told him, do not tell anybody is dead. Do not tell anybody we're dead until you've taken out a certain amount of money, because you're going to need to pay bills. I made a list of all the bills that draft. I made a list of all the bills that he would have to pay. I made a list of all the passwords. I made a list of our life insurance and how much was in it. All of this is because of the series we did at the church in 2017. A friend of mine named Annette Adamska did a presentation. She has a business called Back Up Your Life that talks about getting your digital virtual life in order. And I will share her contact information. I don't want to make it a commercial, but since she spoke at the Chapel of the Cross previously, she gave some really, really good tips. And I put them all in an envelope. It took about a week. And when we got back safely from the UAE, I said to my son, Zan, so how did it go? And he said, well, I didn't have to open the envelope that has all the passwords, so I guess it went pretty good. That was the first conversation. Right before COVID lockdown began, we had a second conversation with our adult sons. This time it was to make sure that they could put their hands on their own medical power of attorneys. Anybody over 18 needs to have a medical power of attorney. So I guess restaurants and bars closed on Monday the 16th. On Sunday the 15th, we went to the bar where my 24-year-old was bartending with a witness, a notary, and a copy of the 5 wishes. We got him to sign it at the bar while I drank the last cold draft beer I've had in 8 months, because I did not want to go into lockdown with that hanging undone. I didn't want my child to be on a ventilator without his having appointed somebody as a medical power of attorney. It didn't have to be me, it could be his brother. But that was the second conversation we had. Oh, Harriet says that she was a hospice nurse for some years. Thank you. She says, so far I'm spot on. I'm sure I'll make a mistake. So I am going to share a video. Like I said, this was unscripted. Oh, wait. Let me do that again. You need to have the sound. So these are my sons. The one in the middle is Zan, he's 20. Jones is 24.
All right, guys and dog. Y'all know I love the 5 wishes, and I want to have a conversation that we can show the church.
Yeah.
Just to show how easy this is. Okay, first off, when should you get a healthcare proxy? At what age does everyone need a healthcare proxy? Go.
18.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say
Yes.
too.
So each of us has one. Who is my first healthcare proxy? There are 3 people I've got listed. Who's number 1?
I'm going to say dad's in first place.
Correct.
Okay.
Who do you think is number 2?
The son that you love more.
Okay, it's the one who answers his phone.
Zan.
Zan. Zan.
Yeah, the one that you love more.
I love you both equally, but Zan is more likely to answer his phone in an emergency. He's healthcare
I got a lot
proxy
going on.
number 2. Okay, who's your healthcare proxy, Jones?
You.
Yep. How about you, Zan?
You.
But you didn't have to choose me. You could choose anybody else over 18. You could choose, a friend.
That's true. The local Pizza Hut stopped taking my calls, though.
Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm going to ask you some questions to see how well you know my end-of-life wishes, okay?
Sounds good.
How about if I am on life support with no chance of recovery? Let's just jump to the big question. Do you think that I want to remain on life support, or do I give you permission to turn it off?
I think that we have permission to turn it off.
That's right.
Second that.
Yes. And I will say that whatever you do is the right thing. I trust y'all with Dad to make
Clearly you trust one of us a little more, but...
really good decisions. Once you make them, don't second guess them. That said, these are some little questions in here. Do you think I would like someone to, let's say I'm unable to care for myself. Do you think I want somebody to, let's say, brush my hair and perhaps pluck the hairs off of my chin?
Yes.
Yes, good, I do. Do you think that I want the TV on in my room?
What channel?
Yeah. I need more information here.
All right, let's say, let me rephrase that. Would I rather have the TV on or music on?
Music.
Music.
Right. I trust either of you to choose music, but what would you choose?
The good kind.
The good kind of music. I would say only 86 to 92 era Bowie. Because it's got like some glitz and some glam, you know, keep you motivated, keep you upbeat.
Sure.
You want somebody to brush your hair? I'm going to brush it down just like this. Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else. Do you think I want somebody like massaging my body all the time?
Based on the way you deliver that line, no.
I don't. Some people might like that, but I do like a good foot rubbing though, maybe.
Well, you got your number one son here to provide weather for you.
If given the choice, do you think I want to die at home?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Where do I want to be buried?
At the church.
Yes. So do you think I want communion at my service?
Can we go back to talking about David Bowie?
This is all written down. I've written it all down so you don't have to guess.
Thank goodness.
This is going to surprise you.
Okay.
No. See, you wouldn't have known. You didn't know.
I did.
I wrote it down. I've got my reasons, as my mother used to say. But, you know, like Bevan's not a Christian. Neither is her husband, Anise. I don't want them to feel excluded. So I have decided I do not want communion. But aren't you glad I wrote that down?
Thank goodness we
See,
didn't have to
otherwise
make that call.
you would have thought like, of course she does.
Yeah.
Right? So
You love those waivers.
y'all have already filled these out.
We have.
You did not fill out everything because you don't have to, but you can always go back, add stuff that matters to you, get it notarized, and you're good to go.
Awesome.
Do you remember the fun we had right before the pandemic?
Gosh, a whirlwind.
Well, the pandemic had started. One of the last things we did was go to the bar where you were working
That's true.
with this in hand and a notary.
That's true. Forgot about that.
I think it's like one of the last cold draft beers I had.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all have these filled out, and you should too. Look how easy this was.
So easy.
So easy.
And I learned a lot.
Thanks, guys.
So after that conversation, I actually went back to my 5 wishes and made some changes because I told my kids I didn't want the TV on. But that's not true. If they're watching BoJack Horseman together and having a good time around the bed, they get TV. So having the conversation is not just a one-time thing, right? You can amend it. You can talk about it. Heather says in North Carolina, you do not have to have 5 wishes notarized, just witnessed. Are you sure? She's the lawyer, not me. All right. Well, then I wasted $6 on that draft beer when I hauled the notary up there. I actually took a stack of 5 wishes to the bar and passed them out to young people. And just by coincidence, one of the people I gave a 5 wishes pack to ended up in the hospital, not with COVID, but a couple of months later. So it is always good to think about. Are there any questions before I get to some other resources? Where do we get the 5 wishes pack? I will send everybody on this call a link, but you can go to www.5wishes.org. And you can order copies online that you download, or you can order paper copies. You can get them actually in bulk. We used to keep them at the church all the time, but the church is, of course, closed right now. But they're very inexpensive. Thank you. Elizabeth Marie has put the link in the chat bar. So another great resource is the Conversation Project. It was started by the journalist Ellen Goodman. And I'll say that when I was growing up in Columbia, South Carolina, there were 2 syndicated journalists I read all the time, One of them was Ed Yoder, who of course is a parishioner, and the other was Ellen Goodman. And Ellen Goodman started the Conversation Project after her own experiences, different but not unlike mine. I'm gonna go to that website now and, whoops, what have I done? Give you a little tour.
While Boykin's doing that, I just want to say that Heather corrected herself in the comments that you actually do need to have the 5 wishes notarized in North Carolina.
As my mother would say, don't doubt me. I'm kidding.
Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so, sorry. Here we go. Molly McConnell says that UNC healthcare clinics and hospital also have 5 wishes in their exam rooms. Oh, cool. And you were told that you needed to have them notarized. Right, so Heather makes a really important point. Every state is different. So in Maryland, where her adult son lives, you only need a witness. When you get your 5 wishes document, it will tell you exactly what you need. You don't need to figure it out on your own. But when my mother was dying, my parents live in North Carolina, but her oncologist was in South Carolina. They live right on the border. And that actually, that did present some interesting sort of legal issues, especially with transporting a body and with some of the medications. When she elected not to have any opioids or painkillers, she did want Marinol, which is a medical THC, which is really, it's an appetite stimulant. And, you know, also it's medical marijuana. She could not get that very easily in North Carolina, but she could get it in South Carolina, go figure. Okay, the Conversation Project. It has starter kits with the workbooks, how to talk to your doctor, a guide to share with your medical professional team what you want. And I quoted my mother as telling us, her children, don't try to guess what I would do. She had to say the same thing to her doctor. She loved her oncologist, but he did not want her to pursue treatment. He said, if you were my mother, I would tell you to go home and enjoy your last days. And she said, don't second guess me. You can really have fun with this website, and I mean that, because the conversations can be, they can be fun. There are videos here, there are stories being prepared in the time of COVID. It goes on and on. I did want to share one more video. Whoops, sorry. From the Conversation Project about choosing a healthcare proxy. And we've already established that if you're 18, you need one. So this is something you can share with friends and family who are younger or older. Okay.
Who would you want to make medical decisions for you if you were unable to make those decisions for yourself? That's the question we're asking out here today. I'm Joanne Endo with the Conversation Project, and we're here to promote our new Healthcare Proxy Starter Kit. If you had to guess, at what age do you think that experts recommend you choose a healthcare proxy?
25.
Mid-50s, maybe 60.
I'll say 21.
I would think the experts would say, as soon as you form an emotional
or legal partnership with someone.
So would it surprise you to learn that experts actually recommend age 18 and up?
Yeah, no, that is surprising. Absolutely.
No, I'm surprised by that. 18.
It's a bit surprising. I can see the logic, but it just seems so early.
Why do you think it's 18?
Because before then, you legally have a healthcare proxy in your parents, and after then, you don't have one.
Can you think about why they probably recommend over 18?
Well, if you're in, for example, a car accident, even if you're not necessarily sick, but you could get injured suddenly, and then you might need a healthcare proxy.
Do you have a healthcare proxy?
I do not, no.
If you were to choose one, who do you think you might ask?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, like for all those things, like when you're my age, you're like, oh, I'd choose my mom, but that doesn't make sense for something like that. Maybe I guess my brother, I guess.
I would ask my older brother because my parents are too emotional. He's rational and he knows me best.
It's my husband, and that seemed to make the most sense. We each have healthcare proxies for one another.
Now, why would you choose your sister?
She knows if I ever got sick, what I would want to happen to me.
So you had this kind of discussion with her about, if I was in a coma, if I was in a car, serious car accident?
I think we've joked about it, but I think the joking still kind of means what I would want to happen. It's never been like serious talks.
So have you talked with your wife very clearly about what your wishes would be in different scenarios?
Well, we have spoken explicitly about the different scenarios, but we also just know each other too from, married 30 years.
So how do you think you'd want to start that conversation with them? Because I can imagine, since you're fairly young, that they might be kind of alarmed that you're asking the question.
I think I would start with asking them about their healthcare wishes because we talked a little bit, but I don't exactly know who is their proxy for sure. So I'd start with them and then maybe transition to me.
I would say, hey, first of all, don't freak out. Nothing's wrong. This is just something that I want to do just to be safe, I guess. Basically I would tell them not to freak out at first.
I would just mention our parents are getting older, so then it would transition to what I would want, what she would want probably.
So is this something you think you might want to broach with your adult children when you get back home?
Now that you mention it, I think I probably should.
So we've had the chance to talk to a variety of people, had some interesting conversations about the importance of having a healthcare proxy. We hope this has sparked your interest in learning more about how to choose one and how to be one. Go to theconversationproject.org to learn more.
So another great resource is StoryCorps. I don't know if you remember StoryCorps from NPR. They have the booth and you record a story and they used to play them on Friday mornings. StoryCorps has put together a great list of questions, not just about end of life wishes, but about memories, about what matters to you in life, about how you want to be remembered. And a few years ago, they started something called the Great Thanksgiving Listen. And the idea was that families and friends could sit around and use these questions and even record them on a StoryCorps app to be archived at the Library of Congress forever. Whether you want to get the app and have an archived story is up to you. But Thanksgiving is a great time to have these conversations, especially, I would say, during COVID, because you might be meeting on Zoom. And if you're meeting on Zoom, you can record it. And some of the stories, especially grandchildren and grandparents or siblings trying to remember, where were we that time when we were picking blueberries with the dogs? Having those stories recorded will be a real gift later. So I had a couple of other resources. Let's see. Oh yeah, it is almost 11:15 and Amanda is going to go disappear for a baptism. So maybe I tell you what I'll do. I will send some resources to all the participants. But if you have not read, am I sharing right now, Amanda?
No, you're not.
No, darn it.
Ted has before we go into that,
Yeah.
Ted asked whether we're allowed to record Zoom meetings without everyone's permission.
You mean with your family?
I imagine in the context of like Thanksgiving with your family over Zoom.
Well, I guess I would ask, why would you do that? I mean, that maybe we should bring Heather back into that. I think the laws might be different state to state, but I would say as an ethicist, no, don't do that. Legally, I guess maybe you could. That is an interesting question. Please know I did not record my children without telling them first. Okay, Heather says, thank you. In North Carolina, you only need one person's permission. So yes, if you want to ask questions on Zoom, I guess you can do that. Okay, let's see. Yeah.
Just real quick, what I would suggest doing, and which I've done in the past, is just say at the beginning of the session to everyone, say, I'd like to record this, because I want the stories. Is everyone okay with that? And then you're good. So.
That's nice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So the Conversation Project, 5 Wishes, and StoryCorps. I think I've mentioned all of those. Some books that you might not, oh my gosh. Yeah. If you have not read Being Mortal by Atul Gawande, it is, I think, just the gold standard for ways to think about caring for other people and yourself at the end of life and deciding what really matters. There's some other books that have more practical tips, but one that I think is just so beautifully written and so encouraging is called Advice for Future Corpses, a practical perspective on death and dying. And while the writer is a Zen Buddhist, I suspect she grew up as an Episcopalian because the language she uses is so very familiar. And she does talk very graphically about what happens to the body, but we all read it as my mother was dying, and I really found such comfort in it. And we were able to talk more clearly about how we wanted the last days to be. So I highly recommend that book. Any other questions or comments, especially from the hospice nurses or from personal experiences? Amanda, you've got to go. Noah is still here. But this is a meeting, so other people can unmute and make comments if you'd like to. Well, in that case, thank you. Thank you so much. And this was recorded. Oh boy, I violated my own ethics because I should have said that at the beginning. If anybody, we couldn't see your faces. If you made comments in the chat that you're uncomfortable sharing, just send me an email and we will not publish this. Otherwise, we'll make it available tomorrow. And I will send links to the resources. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Borkin. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Next week, by the way, is Coffee with Clergy, I believe. So we're just going to have a sort of casual Christ the King get together.
Thank you so much.
Boykin.
Thank you,
Thank
Boykin.
you.
Great. Good to see everybody.
Thanks. Thanks.